All right, let's talk about it. Tennessee Titans fall on Thursday Night Football at the Pittsburgh Steelers, a final score of 20-16. The Titans 3-5 heading into the mini bye. I'm Lucas Panzica. Brad Hopkins in studio in for Kevin Dyson tonight on Titans Talkback. 615-737-1045 is how you can get involved. B-Hop, the game went about as you would have predicted this version of the Titans and Steelers to go in 2023 as far as how the game played out through four quarters, and ultimately game there for the taking in moments for the Titans and unable to do so as Pittsburgh improves to 5-3 and the Titans fall to 3-5.
Yeah, but this game was indicative of a line of scrimmage game that both Mike Vrabel and Mike Tomlin love to play, a physical battle between two hard-nosed teams. It didn't surprise me that only 3 touchdowns were scored in its entirety. Saw a lot of field goals. It was back and forth for a little bit, but we did see some pretty consistent play, I would say, from Will Levis. Excited to watch him and see what the future holds for that young man.
Will Levis, 22 of 39, 262 yards, had the one interception on the final offensive play of the night for the Titans, just trying to get it to the end zone there on a late drive. Titans got a second crack at it, right? You got the football near midfield after the unsportsmanlike conduct following the Steelers touchdown. Got the ball 2 yards from midfield to be specific, and it's a 4-and-out B-Hop with 3 runs, and then the deep shot intended for Burks, who, by the way, Mike Vrabel saying that Burks was moving, was communicating, was in the training room after the game. So obviously all thoughts and prayers to the Titans' second-year wide receiver, and we certainly hope that he is able to make a quick recovery. But the 4-and-out, Steelers get the football back, and the Titans able to force the turnover, or the punt, I should say, and get another crack at it, just come up short.
Yeah, we saw the emergence of Kyle Phillips in the second half when the Steelers made those adjustments to take DeAndre Hopkins out of the game. Had a tremendous first half, saw a lot of productivity because wherever he lined up, Will Levis seemed to find him, but ultimately they had to make that adjustment and find other receivers, especially down that last 2-minute stretch.
Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company. All you need. Visit them online at leecompany.com. Again, 615-737-1045 for you to hop into the conversation. You want to talk to Titans legend Brad Hopkins? Give us a call, 615-737-1045. You mentioned DeAndre Hopkins and what the Steelers did to take him away in the second half. It's obvious that he is the favorite target of Will Levis for a good reason after what we saw on Sunday. D-Hop, without a reception in the second half, Brad, on the night, targeted 11 times, 4 catches, 60 yards. What did the Steelers do differently in the third and fourth quarters?
They bracketed him. They put a guy over the top, so there was no way in the world that he could come loose. On the number of occasions you saw formations that we hadn't seen the Titans run because it wasn't like DeAndre Hopkins was improvising, but he was finding those creases in the zone to sit himself down, think himself available for Will Levis, and Will made those connections early on. And like a smart defense would do, they saw exactly where Will was going with the ball. As a matter of fact, Will was going to DeAndre Hopkins on that first possession to start the second half, and the reason why that was an incompletion is because Will stared him down. He knew exactly where he was going with the football, and so did the Steelers.
But overall, another impressive outing for Will Levis. Obviously not the production that we saw on Sunday, but would you say he was as poised as you saw on Sunday against the Falcons?
I think Tony Gonzalez used those exact words. Poised in the pocket. He's not scared of the pass rush, even though he did get hit 8 times, was sacked 4 times. He kept his eyes downfield. Those big arms are big for a reason. He was able to be physical in the pocket. He wasn't looking to escape, even though he did move around a little bit. He still was trying to find his open receivers. We didn't see many rush yards by him because he wasn't attempting to escape the pocket. So I think of Will Levis with that poise, that confidence, and the ball jumping out of his hands, Lucas, like it did on so many of occasions. I mean, how many times do we see the flick of the wrist go for 30, 40 yards and find receivers and ultimately, moving the chains for the Titans?
11 days from now, the Titans will retake the field at Tampa Bay. After what we saw on Sunday, does the conversation now become between now and the Bucs game, what do you do if Ryan Tannehill is healthy against the Bucs? I think most Titans fans have their answer. I think most Titans fans are going with number 8, but the real question, Brad Hopkins, is what does Mike Vrabel do if Ryan Tannehill is healthy in Tampa Bay?
So Jackson and I were talking in here, our esteemed producer, just about how exciting it was to watch Will Levis over the past couple of weeks. I get it. I understand that. Mike Vrabel's an old school guy, though. You don't lose your job to injury. Now, we thought that the Steelers being on the road for Will Levis would be the first test to see exactly what this kid could do. That's part of it. Now we have to see a difference in the offense when Ryan Tannehill takes back under center. In other words, if we don't see the same kind of efficiency, if we don't see the same kind of exciting plays being made when Ryan Tannehill comes back, then it's obvious, and I think he'll have a short leash. We understand a little bit more about who Will Levis is, his evolution of sorts. He's been thrust into some huge situations, and for me, he's come up pretty big. So I would say that there's a bright future for that young man, but I think they'll finish out doing the right thing and giving the ball back to Ryan Tannehill because you don't lose your job to injury. That's just kind of like one of those standard things in the NFL.
Be a fascinating discussion over the course of the next week and a half. Jump in on it with us, 615-737-1045. The Titans trust their home stadium to Lee Company to tackle their HVAC, plumbing, and electrical problems. They can protect your home, too. Your next play, visit leecompany.com. Lee Company, all you need. Again, 615-737-1045 or hop in the F&M Bank chat on 1045 The Zone TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or Twitch. I see the comments coming in. We'll get to your phone calls and your comments on the other side as we break down the Titans' 20-16 loss at the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's the Lee Company Titans Talkback on 1045 The Zone.
Will Levis with 11 seconds remaining. Facing a four-man rush. Takes the snap. Looks, fires toward the end zone. It's intercepted. Intercepted in the end zone. And picking it off for the Steelers is Quan Alexander.
That's what ended things as the Titans made one final push down the field and ultimately falling 20-16 at the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Titans remain winless on the road and fall to 3-5 on the season heading into the mini-bye. Alongside Titans legend Brad Hopkins, I'm Lucas Panzica. Jackson Williams, our producer. It's Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company. All you need. Visit them online at leecompany.com. We'll go right to the phone, 615-737-1045, how you can jump in. Eric in Nashville leads us off. Hey, Eric.
Hope y'all kind of forgive me. I'm battling some allergies, so I might sound a little bit funny on the phone. But, guys, here's my thoughts on the game and to say about it. With this loss now, guys, we've not won a road game since Green Bay Thursday night game last year. It's been nearly a year now, guys. But, hey, I'll tell you what, Titans on third down, we were 3 of 12. Pittsburgh was 50%, 6 of 12. Kenny Pickett, I think with the performance tonight, I think he's earned a starting job. Whether or not that will happen, I don't know. But he was, I thought, played great. Despite all that, the fact that offensive lineman going down and he was hurt. I mean, no, he wasn't hurt, but he got sacked 4 times, guys. I also thought that Kenny Pickett sore ribs. We didn't get no sacks on him, guys. That hurt. They didn't turn the ball over. Minka Fitzpatrick was out. You had Cam Hayward that made that huge stop on the Tajay Spears 8-yard loss. We had to stop a field goal. But here's the main difference in the game, guys. We wind up on the 8-yard line. We wind up having to punt the ball. Steelers get the ball on the 8-yard line. They drive down the field, aided by a couple of penalties, and get the touchdown. Mike Tomlin always finds a way to win games like this. I'm not surprised. It went pretty much like I thought it was going to go, guys. They always find a way to pull these type of games out. We got to give credit to them, guys. Y'all take care, and we'll talk again soon.
Hey, thanks for the call, Eric. 615-737-1045. It's what they do, B-Hop.
Yeah, but they
Pittsburgh
weren't. Listen, they weren't getting to Kenny Pickett because Jalen Warren was averaging 8 yards a carry. They finished with 165 yards between he and Najee Harris. They were pretty much running the football, not at will, but they were very productive running it. So you didn't see Kenny Pickett in a lot of passing situations, right? And I would say that, you know, for what we saw in Will Levis, they made the adjustments that made him find other receivers in the second half. Eric mentioned the third down percentages between the two teams. The Titans were actually winning the third down percentage at 43% in the first half. The Steelers only had 40% completions on third down in the first half. Taking DeAndre Hopkins out of the game by bracketing him, forcing Will Levis to find other receivers are what we saw in the incompletions. And then, of course, we finishing with 23% on third down. So give the credit to the Steelers for making those second half adjustments against a rookie quarterback, right? Making him find other guys. Give credit also to Kyle Phillips for becoming that guy that found himself open on a number of occasions to move the sticks. But ultimately, we needed more of that. Traylon Burks didn't have his first catch until the second half. You know, and I think the couple catches that he did have were effective. We saw him try and run a reverse for 5 yards. That made him look a little gimpy. I don't think he would have dropped the ball, maybe not even being in bounds on the one that he got himself knocked out. But still, we didn't see him being the off speed or the other option consistently to DeAndre Hopkins, who was finding himself open at will in the first half.
Again, Traylon Burks, Mike Vrabel said, responsive after the game, was in the training room with the team, so certainly hope a quick recovery is on the way for the second-year wide receiver. Yeah, you're right. The Titans 3 of 7 on third down in the first half, 0 for 5 on third down in the second half, and that was a big part of it. And the Steelers, now 5-3, now in 4 of those 5 wins, B-Hop, have trailed at one point or another in the second half in 4 of their 5 victories this season, including tonight.
Well, that was one of the statistics that they were saying were plaguing the Steelers, the fact that the opponent's point per game was more than what the Steelers were averaging per game. So they needed more offensive productivity. 2 touchdowns isn't going to get it done. 3 touchdowns in the entirety of the game between both teams. This was a back-and-forth battle. And you know what? I don't have a problem with the defensive game. When both defenses show up and they're hard to run against and they're hard to throw against, you got to give credit where credit is due. And unfortunately, both these quarterbacks, Kenny Pickett, a young guy, Will Levis, a young guy, trying to make those consistent connections in the pass game, it was few and far between.
You knew what the Titans were up against as far as this Steelers front with T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith and Cam Hayward, and it played out that way, right? T.J. Watt, a pair of sacks on the night. Highsmith, a pair of snacks, or Watt with one, Highsmith had two. Marcus Golden chipping in a sack. And it didn't help that the Titans were a bit of a rotating or a musical chair, so to speak, on the offensive line. 8 different guys having to come in and play tonight on the offensive line.
Yeah, you saw a number of injuries. We saw Peter Skoronski go out for a play. We saw Andre Dillard go out for a play. We saw Mr. Radens come in and spilling in for MPF on a couple of plays. But each one of those guys at one point in time took their turns in giving up some pressure. Now, I think the goal coming into this game was to what? Take number 90 out of the game. I'd say a sack and 2 hits. You did pretty good against a guy that's very, very disruptive. But what they did was open the door for Alex Highsmith to have the game that he had. 2 sacks, 5 hits, his one-on-one situations. He won in those situations, and that's what they challenged him to do, knowing that the job was to take T.J. Watt out of the picture. They moved D.J. Watt to 11 technique way out there on the outside. We saw Tajay Spears chipping on a couple of occasions. But as much as we want to complain about the offensive line, there are a number of occasions where even in one-on-one situations, they did okay for themselves, giving Will Levis enough time in the pocket, allowing him to be comfortable enough to find the open receiver. Just in the second half, trying to get themselves off of DeAndre Hopkins onto the next available option in the progression seemed to be a little more of a challenge for Will Levis in that second half.
How did you gauge Will Levis's ability to stand in the pocket to make the right decisions as he was really under duress, really getting hit and taken down for the first time in his NFL career against an elite front for the first time in his NFL career?
I'm going to temper this when I say this. There's only one other quarterback that I saw in the huddle whose eyes never showed any sort of flinching when it came to pressure. And I'm talking about Mac 9. And I saw that same kind of, I guess, moxie in the pocket, moxie in taking the ball and doing the things that he needed to do with it without looking scared, without getting happy feet. You know, a lot of times when quarterbacks are getting hit, as much as Will Levis has been hit over the past couple of weeks, they start to get their happy feet and they start to look for the escape route because they're not watching the routes. They're watching the pass rush. Will never looked at the pass rush. As a matter of fact, he held onto the ball in one instance, taking a sack because he so confidently believed in his ability to find the open receiver. I think that's a good trait to have. Those big arms were big for a reason, right? We see him slinging the ball around and finding accurate throws, making accurate throws, rather, whether it was side-armed, whether it was layering the ball. He did a lot of nice stuff, showed some nice touch on the ball when need be, but he also has the big play ability to find a guy deep when necessary. I think it's going to play out big for him in the future.
Titans took a 13-10 lead into the half. Steelers tied it up at 10 with the field goal. Titans defensively, certainly there were issues, and we're going to talk about the lack of pass rush, the lack of takeaways from the Titans defense. But red zone defense continued to be a strength for this team. Game's tied at 10. Titans marching down the field have to settle for a field goal. It felt like a bonus, right, to march down and grab some points going into the half. You get the ball in the third quarter. But Ricky in the F&M Bank chat says he felt like a turning point in the game was Tajay Spears just missing out on that touchdown where it looked like
he's
kind of
backwards.
Right, he's kind of backing up into it where you feel like if he just keeps going, carrying that path into the end zone, ball just nestles right into his hands, wide open.
I can't say that was an overthrow simply because of how Tajay ended up running the route, but I'm sure that Tajay didn't expect himself to be the recipient of that pass as well, but he was wide open, maybe a breakdown in coverage. In the very beginning, the Titans were rushing forward, Lucas. And I even tweeted out, I said, you know what? They might want to start bringing the blitz. They might want to start adding another guy in there, another layer to add some pressure. And that's when we saw Kenny Pickett getting off the field on third down because he couldn't handle the pressure, whether it was coming from a blitzer, whether it was coming from some stunts up front. But they were doing more than just rushing the 4, giving him all that time in the pocket. You mentioned their red zone defense. Their red zone defense shored up because why? The end zone is the 12th defender. There's really nowhere else for them to go in the secondary. So that means routes are running shorter, and it allowed less time for Kenny in the pocket to be able to find those open receivers. So I thought that when in the very beginning, before they made the adjustments to start bringing other guys, to start maybe putting dudes at in that A and B gap, making the line make those adjustments, we saw Kenny Pickett pretty much having his way with that secondary until we started dialing up the pressure.
That brings us to the Kroger Sacks for Cash, or lack thereof, I suppose. Tonight, the Titans had 0 sacks for the season. Kroger's donation to Second Harvest Food Bank of Middle Tennessee remains at $3,200. Every time the Titans sack the opposing team's quarterback, Kroger donates $100 to Second Harvest Food Bank of Middle Tennessee from Kroger. Through its Zero Hunger, Zero Waste plan, Kroger is committed to ending hunger in our communities. Something that figured to be a big strength for this team, Brad Hopkins, has been at best inconsistent this season as far as getting home and sacking the quarterback.
Yeah, two hits, no sacks. I don't think that this is a situation where we don't have the guys to do it, maybe on the outside, because we know how much attention that Jeffrey Simmons requires. It's very rare that you see two hands be able to stop him. It usually takes 4, maybe sometimes 6 to keep him out of the backfield. But that's when you have to have an edge rusher to be able to take advantage of those double teams that Jeffrey Simmons is going to require, right? We saw the Titans have a game plan to slow down T.J. Watt, and that's why we saw Alex Highsmith have such an effective ball game because of all the attention he was receiving. We have to have the same kind of presence on our side of the football. Whenever we have the number 98 who's collapsing pockets, who on the goal line was being very disruptive. I thought if it weren't for Eric Garrer, the holding penalty, the Titans did a good job of moving them back, causing a false start when they tried to run their wildcat situation, the Steelers offense, right? And it would have been a situation where we gave up maybe a field goal rather than a touchdown. That could have been the difference in the ballgame.
And that is a trickle-down effect, right? That lack of pressure on Kenny Pickett. The Titans have a league-low 2 interceptions forced so far this season, and certainly no takeaways tonight. And we've seen so many times this team be able to play complementary defense, tip balls at the line of scrimmage, pressure on the quarterback, leading to forced throws, early throws, and turnovers. Do you think that's been the biggest factor in why this secondary hasn't been able to force as many turnovers this year, the inconsistencies in the pass rush?
I think it's all plays hand in hand, right? A quarterback that feels the pass rush will throw the ball up in the air sooner than he wants to, maybe even before the route truly develops like it's supposed to. Those are the opportunities that the secondary can take advantage of to come up with picks. But when the guy has all day in the pocket, to just basically move around and wait for a receiver to come open, it's a hard thing to basically cover a receiver for 4 and 5 seconds, which in the first half we saw that a little bit more consistently until we started dialing up some pressure, bringing guys down out of the sky, adding another guy at the line of scrimmage, bringing 5, 6 dudes instead of just 4, the normal rushers. Then that basically allowed the Steelers to have to make adjustments. But the turnovers come when you make the quarterback uncomfortable in the pocket. When he doesn't want to throw that football into a space that he knows could be dangerous, that's when turnovers happen for this team.
615-737-1045 for you to jump in. The Lee Company Titans Talkback. The Titans trust their home stadium to Lee Company to tackle their HVAC, plumbing, and electrical problems. They can protect your home, too. Your next play, visit leecompany.com. Lee Company, all you need. Derrick Henry leading the way for the Titans. 75 rush yards on the night, 102 all-purpose yards. Had the only touchdown of the night for the Titans. That moves Henry now up to 601 rush yards on the season, placing him second among NFL running backs behind only San Francisco's Christian McCaffrey. 17 carries for Derrick Henry. Obviously, a lot of the complaints tomorrow throughout the day on 104.5 The Zone and throughout the course of next week will be about the play calling on the second-to-last series, the run, deep ball down the left sideline to Burks on 4th down. But overall, what did you make of the usage of the run game and Derrick Henry tonight from Tim Kelly?
Obviously, I think that most offenses want to establish the line of scrimmage and have the run game be the feature, right? Because so much of the offense opens up, the playbook opens up, extensively when you have those kind of options. When a team really isn't sure what you're able to do because it's in third and manageable or second and short, that really puts them on their heels and they're basically in a bind. That wasn't the case. I think when you saw them try and run, was basically trying to avoid being predictable. In a lot of situations, you would figure that they were trying to stretch the field, especially when they found themselves down in the ball game, right, to make those big plays. And that's sometimes when the underneath routes and when the run game can really take advantage. Tyjae Spears definitely shows his ability to get to the edges with his speed, his shiftiness. We saw him on a 3rd down bring up 4th and short, which Derrick Henry then turned into a 1st down on the next play because of the shiftiness that we see in the situation and being unpredictable in that way. Now, the deep ball down the sideline to Treylon Burks, that was out of necessity. because where he wanted to go with the football, a simple conversion to first down and move the chains, would have been easy to find there DeAndre Hopkins had he not had a guy over the top. You saw him in cover 0 in that situation. Everybody's in press coverage, but they were bringing the house to make sure that they try and make Will Levis uncomfortable in the pocket. The catch just didn't come through. I don't need, obviously if Traylon were conscious when he caught the ball, I don't think his feet were inbounds anyway. But still, it was a tremendous way to go up. And had he been maybe got his feet inbounds and come down with the catch, we might have been having a different discussion right here. But the game is just that. It's just the tail of the tape, just that short.
615-737-1045. I see Big O, Will, Alex. Your phone calls coming up next as the Titans fall at the Steelers 20-16 on Thursday Night Football. It's the Lee Company Titans Talkback on 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back. Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company on 104.5 The Zone, 615-737-1045. How you can jump in. Lee Company, all you need. Visit them online at leecompany.com. Alongside Brad Hopkins, I'm Lucas Panzica, taking your phone calls, reacting to the Titans' 20-16 loss at the Pittsburgh Steelers on Thursday Night Football, as we lead off with Alex in Nashville. Wants to talk about Mike Vrabel. Hey, Alex.
How's it going, guys?
Good.
Hey, Alex.
D-Hop, big fan. Lucas, love the show every day with you and Bach. I don't know. I'm frustrated. I know the lack of an offensive line has a lot to do with it, but at the same time, that same offensive line was there last week on Sunday against Atlanta, and we saw a lot of deep balls, and the game was at home. That same offensive line, given there were a lot of injuries today, we just didn't see that many deep balls. Like I said, I don't know if the offensive line had a lot to do with that or just like receivers getting open. But we just didn't see many deep balls today, or it didn't seem like there were even many play calls to be deep balls to have. That was frustrating. That run on that second to last offensive drive is really frustrating. And it makes me worried that Mike Vrabel is going to end up like Malarkey and Mariota again. It feels like a defensive-minded head coach is not going to be good for Will Levis. And I just want to get you all's thoughts on that.
Thanks for the call, Alex.
Yeah, I think that Mike gives Tim Kelly pretty much autonomy to run the offense. He doesn't want to be staring over his shoulder looking at his play selection. There's no way that anyone wants to do their job. And you're right. It is hard for a defensive coach to affect the offense. He has to hire for that position. And Tim Kelly, we saw him pulling out all the stops with the D-Hop potential throwback to Derrick Henry, to reverses, to all kinds of trick plays to basically throw the Steelers off. Now, we didn't see the deep ball a lot tonight because we saw it last week. Will Levis actually addressed that. He said, there's tape out on me now. They looked at my tendencies. And they watched him do those same tendencies through the first 30 minutes of the ball game, and they didn't allow it to happen the last 30 minutes of the ball game. So I thought ultimately those adjustments that the Steelers make, looking at what Will Levis did against the Falcons, against a lesser pass rush as well. They didn't have Calais Campbell. Bud Dupree isn't near T.J. Watt. Alex Highsmith took total advantage of the double team situations of them going into this ball game, trying to take number 90 out of it. And as we talked earlier, Lucas and I did to start the show, I thought they did a good job of that. Whenever you say T.J. Watt only had 1 sack and 2 hits on the quarterback, that's okay, especially given the issues that we know are plaguing this offense up front. We saw a number of guys go down, come in and out of the lineup. We saw players that hadn't even been on the field. Jalen Duncan was on the field at some point tonight. You know what I mean? So I think given the issues that we saw in this ball game, there's something to work with. Now, I'm not going to completely dump on them because there was a couple of times where I was clapping for Dillard, where I was actually clapping for Radens as they actually held their own. Now, they did have some help from the back, chipping, but when T.J. Watt's in 11 position, sitting out there look like he's covering the slot, you're coming off the slot receiver, you got to, mind the store, so to speak. And I thought that they did, the job that they were supposed to do, but in those one-on-one situations that weren't T.J. Watt, we tended to lose. 5 hits from one guy. 2 sacks. 2 sacks from Highsmith. Yeah. From Highsmith. That's quite the ball game from him. And also, you got to give credit, and you mentioned this to me, Lucas, before we started the show. Joey Porter Jr., even though he did have that holding call that extended the drive, giving the Titans life, he did a pretty good job in one-on-one situations with help on DeAndre Hopkins. So their second half agenda was to do what? Take 10 away from 8. And that's exactly what they did, and they got 2. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know how it's just the math. But either way, it didn't work out.
615-737-1045. Big O is in Rome to chime in. Hey, Big O.
Brad and Lucas, I thank you for the opportunity to speak. I love defense, and this team seems to struggle on the road. At the Colts, we forced 1 punt on the first drive. I was very disappointed today. We were backed up at the 8-yard line, come way out, flip the field, put the ball at their 8-yard line, and late in the game, we let Pittsburgh come down the field and score. I think that was the change in the game. I think the defense let us down. My problem's not with this offense. We scored late in the first half with very little time, and then we had the ball at the start of the first half. I know we didn't do something there when we would have liked to have, but with a rookie quarterback at Pittsburgh against that defense, I'm not disappointed. We knew what we was coming out against tonight, but our defense, not one sack, disappointing to me. I'll lay it at the feet of the defense. I'll hang up and listen to your comments. Have a great night.
Thanks for the call, Big O. And B-Hop, before you add to that, let me add this. The Titans went 10 straight games holding teams under 100 rush yards. They've now given up over 100 rush yards in 4 straight games. Tonight, against the Pittsburgh Steelers, Jalen Warren with a nice night. The Titans give up 166 yards on the ground, 5.5 yards per carry.
Yeah, it's, and I think it starts up front. I think it starts with the front four. I think the ability to apply consistent pressure has been a problem because good quarterbacks, with time, they'll find the open receiver. Great quarterbacks, it's lethal. You don't even do that. If you don't have bodies in the guy's face that's trying to find an open receiver, if you don't make him uncomfortable in the pocket and he has all day to sit back there and pad the ball, then throw for a completion, that's problematic. And the way they started the game, that first drive that we saw the Pittsburgh Steelers with the ball was one of the only drives that they actually scored a touchdown on. Why? Because we were only rushing 4. And Jeffrey Simmons being double-teamed like he was, that should have been a perfect opportunity for somebody else to win the one-on-ones. But we didn't get that. So now you got to start doing what? Bringing bodies out of the sky, putting bodies at the line of scrimmage, which does what? Compromises the secondary. Now, if a good quarterback can find the advantage getting the ball out of his hands when you see the blitzer coming, then that's when they're able to take advantage. But we have to find ways to consistently harass a quarterback. That's the way you win in the National Football League.
Yeah, the Steelers came into the game 28th in rush yards per game in the NFL, averaging under 80 yards per contest. And we said coming in, you can't let this be the get-right game for that Steelers rushing attack for Najee Harris. It wasn't even Najee Harris, really. It was Jalen Warren who had some juice to him tonight, the second-year undrafted player out of Utah State. But, again, 166 yards on the ground.
That's another point that you make very eloquently in the fact that why would I throw the bean around if I'm rushing for 165 yards? I don't need to. So we didn't see Kenny Pickett in subsequent dangerous situations, right, sitting back there needing to throw the football because they had long down and distances to convert. We saw them effectively running the football, which then didn't make them have to pass the football, which obviously then you're not going to get much sacks when a team is running as effectively as the Steelers were tonight.
615-737-1045. I see Will and Brandon on the line taking your phone calls and looking ahead to what the Titans have next after the mini-bye following a 20-16 loss at the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's Titans Talkback presented by Lee Company on 104.5 The Zone. 615-737-1045, how you can jump in to react to the Titans' 20-16 loss at the Pittsburgh Steelers. They drop to 3-5, remaining winless on the road. Brad Hopkins in for Kevin Dyson tonight. I'm Lucas Panzica. Jackson Williams is our producer. Presented by Lee Company. All you need. Visit them online at leecompany.com. Will Levis on the night, 22 of 39, 262 yards. One interception coming, of course, late as the Titans were set up on the 19-yard line. Had probably two plays, 11 seconds left, third down, two shots at the end zone. On the first of those two shots, Levis trying to make a play, throws it into the end zone. It's picked off, and the Pittsburgh Steelers win it. So the discussion then becomes who starts if Ryan Tannehill is healthy when the Titans get ready to go to Tampa. It'll be an interesting 11 days, Brad Hopkins.
Somebody was mocking me on Twitter, and they said, did Brad just say that you can't lose your job to injuries? Good job. Good thing the Patriots don't think that way.
Fair enough. 615-737-1045. Will in Nashville is next.
What's going on, fellas? Good. I hope y'all having a good night. B-Hop, glad to be able to talk to you, brother. You're the sole reason why I'm a Titans fan. You came to my elementary school back in the early 2000s, so glad to be able to talk to you. But I honestly think we made some really good decisions and then followed them up right with really bad decisions. Like, we did good right before the half to get 3 points, but I feel like on that third down, we should have took a shot to try to get a touchdown instead of settling for the field goal. And then with the drive, when we had about 3 or 4 minutes right before the last drive, and it really made it that much worse on the very last drive when Will Levis drive us all the way down the field. Why on that last drive on the third down, you decide 3rd and 4, you decide to run the ball with Tajay Spears. And then, of course, you threw it deep to Traylon, which I didn't like that either. We only needed 4 yards. But I just felt those were some small mistakes that kind of cost us the game.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. There are probably a few plays in there that they wish they could have taken back. You know, that's just the way the ball bounces in some instances. A lot of time when you run those unpredictable runs, you know, like we were talking about, it's because the defense is probably figuring you're going to pass it, and you're probably trying to be less predictable. And that's the way you would like to, in those 3rd and 4th situations, have the options, right? But it just didn't work out for us in that instance. I mean, had Tajay run for a first down, we wouldn't be talking about it, you know? So, yeah, I think that there are probably a few, and Mike Vrabel even mentioned that in his post-game press conference, that they didn't finish drives like they wanted to. Of course, anytime you only put the ball in the end zone one time as an offense, that's never productive offense, right? But you're going up against a stout defense on the road with a rookie quarterback. So there's a lot, you know, to be second-guessed. I understand that. But there's also a lot to build on, and I would say that.
In the F&M Bank chat, 104.5 The Zone TV, Drew says, is it worth starting Levis behind this offensive line? What if he gets injured or develops some bad habits? But that's the thing, B-Hop. I think Levis has responded to playing behind a susceptible offensive line at best in a far more positive manner than any of us, even the most optimistic of us, would have expected.
Got them young bones, though, man. I mean, listen, they used to start getting on Josh Allen for taking too many hits that were unnecessary. Started getting on Ben Roethlisberger, and these are big-bodied quarterbacks, right? I understand Will Levis thinks that he's impervious to injury right now. A lot of young guys do. But after a while, it's going to start catching up to you. So it's not okay for your quarterback to take 11 hits last week. It's not okay for your quarterback to take 8 hits this week. How many more is he going to take the next time he's in the starting lineup? Sure, he's able to handle it, but a lesser quarterback, I'm saying lesser quarterback from a physicality standpoint, Ryan Tannehill's on the sideline because of the same situation. So ultimately, you don't want to have your quarterback put in those dangerous type situations, but I did see him with some efficiency get the ball out of his hands. He did a great job of recognizing the coverage. He saw when there were certain instances where they were trying to blitz him. He got the ball out of his hands quickly, and his command of the offense is something that I was proud to see. Right? It wasn't like he was scared or shy to call out who the line had, who they were trying to slide to, making those simple adjustments at the line of scrimmage. So he didn't appear to me to be a rookie. Now, there were some instances where he did show himself to be a rookie, but for the most part, he played the game with what Tony Gonzalez called poise, and you need that at the QB position.
615-737-1045. Brandon in Nashville is next on Titans Talkback.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Hey, Brandon.
What's up, P?
So, I'm from Nashville. I'm in my 30s. I've watched a lot of – I'm not going to call the quarterbacks bad. Sometimes I think they were in bad situations because of who was running the team. I don't think we had good GMs for a while, if you ask me. But he's a rookie quarterback. It's Thursday night. Come on, he played the Steelers. You know what I mean? Like, You know what that line is. We should know what our line is, and then all the backups went in. But at the end of the day, my issue is, hey man, Kyle Phillips, you could have threw it to him. You gotta peep it. When he know what he doing, he is on fire. But he's a rookie. I'm really impressed. It's been about 20 years since I saw somebody wearing a Titans quarterback I'm
Brandon,
whoa.
was it fun to watch? Come on, be honest. Was it fun to watch?
It's great to watch.
It was fun to watch.
I'm okay with everything. You trade Kevin Byard, well, of course your secondary is going to be bad. He's telling the people where to go at least, He was very important. Well, you traded him. Y'all got to accept that. Defensive line versus their offensive line, they got the best of us this time. You got to accept that. But at the end of the day, after 20 years, we got a guy.
Yeah. Man, thanks for the call, Brandon.
Thanks, Brandon. I saw Aziz Al-Shaair make a couple of plays. The one that looked like it was going to be a touchdown, right? But he got his hand up at the last second, reading the eyes of the receiver. Tremendous play. But what makes the secondary a lot stronger than they are? When the quarterback is being harassed, when this dude is rolling around the pocket trying to avoid bodies that are chasing him, throwing off his back foot, just doing whatever he can to get the ball out of his hands because he is the pocket is non-existent. And that's the kind of situation that comes in balance with a good defense. They play off of one another. Now, what also helps the pass rush, when there's nowhere to go with the football, when you blanket receivers, when they can't get separation. That makes the quarterback hold on to the football, and just that 1 second longer usually ends up in a sack or at least a hit. They need to get to them ribs a little bit more often than they did tonight. That would have been the difference in the ball game, in my opinion.
Yeah, Titans unable to get home tonight against Kenny Pickett. Andrew calling all the way from PA. We'll round out our final call of the night on Titans Talkback. Hey, Andrew.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good. What you got?
I was at the game tonight, and I was going to mention, Will Levis. He looked really good. Other people have been mentioning him as well. But another issue I had was the penalties this week.
Oh, my God.
The last week against Atlanta was a pretty clean game overall. I think this week was not so much. The officiating crew, they seem to be all over the place tonight for both teams. And some of the calls definitely hurt us. Some were in our favor, but it just didn't work out in the end, I guess.
Thanks for the call.
Yeah, you know what, though? I will say this. That's a great call, too. I will say this. We did as much scouting of the officials before the game as we did anything else. Meaning, I would have guys come up to me sometime, Lucas, and say, Hop, stop holding. And I knew what I could get away with versus those guys that I knew had their hand on the flag before the ball was snapped. They're ready to throw that thing immediately. So understanding exactly the crew that you're dealing with, that also makes a difference. And if they're all over the place, they're all over the place consistently.
9 penalties were accepted in the first quarter. The Titans flagged 7 times for 51 yards. The Steelers 10 times for 80 yards.
Not good.
As we pivot to the Eurofix look ahead, let me remind you, Eurofix repairs everything European that you drive in below dealer pricing. ASC certified technicians, a local company that is certified or that has serviced Middle Tennessee for over 2 decades. Visit eurofixonline.com. In 11 days, the mini bye, the Titans will travel to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 3-5, looking to cure their road woes. Plenty of time to talk about it starting tomorrow, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. right here on 104.5 The Zone. Brett Hopkins will be a part of that, 1 to 3 on Blaine and Mickey. B-Hop, thanks for doing this, man.
Anytime, Lucas.
All right, we'll see you tomorrow, Brad Hopkins, and all of you as well. Titans radio coverage is produced by Philip Noel and Brad Willis. The studio producer is Joe Hunkapiller. Promotions director, Rich Ferris. Director of sales is Hunter Rice. General manager, Allison Warren. Operations manager, Charlie Cook. And Paul Mason, the executive producer of Titans Radio, is Rhett Bryan. For our producer, Jackson Williams, Brad Hopkins, I'm Lucas Panzica. This has been the League Company Titans Talkback as the Titans fall 20-16 at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Talk to you tomorrow morning on 104.5 The Zone.